Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am your host, John Campia, and this is the special companion video that I do pretty much daily here. See, in the mornings on the John Campia Show and in the afternoons on Open Mic, we take a bunch of live questions, but often we don't have time to get around to all the questions that you guys send in, but I let you guys know that if you send in a question, it will get answered, so I collect all those questions that we didn't have time to answer live, and we answer them here on the companion video. So with all that out of the way, we got a whole bunch to cover today. We got some from Friday, from Saturday, from Sunday, and from this morning. So we got a whole bunch to go through here. We're going to rifle through them as quick as we can. So let's get things going with the first question. And the first question today comes to us from Matthew Correra, who writes, biggest pet peeve in movies. Easy. My biggest pet peeve in movies is when they use the plot device of somebody saying, I've got something to tell you, but I'll tell you a little bit later. Well, it's automatic. That guy's going to die. Gets him on the phone. I found who the secret villain is. Who is it? Not over the phone. Meet me on certain death peak at midnight. Well, you know that guy's going to die before they ever have a chance to meet, right? Happens in every movie, every television show. That's my biggest pet peeve. All right, next one comes to us from James O'Rourke, who writes, hey, John, been watching you since the AMC days. Thank you so much, James. Your opinion, please. I would personally like to see Blackest Day, Brightest Night series on the big screen. I'm not familiar with Blackest Day, Brightest Night. I'm pretty sure that's kind of like the reverse slogan of the Green Lantern Corps that I think the Sinestro Corps has used. Blackest Day, Brightest Night, but the Green Lantern Corps, and there has been a series on Brightest Day, Blackest Night. If that's what you're talking about, maybe let's see them have one successful Green Lantern movie first, because right now we haven't had a successful one. So if you're talking about Brightest Day, Blackest Night, we're nowhere near that. I mean, we got to get at least one successful Green Lantern movie first. If you're talking about some storyline that I'm unfamiliar with Black, which is possible, I don't know every single comic book storyline. So if you're talking about something that's actually Blackest Day, Brightest Night, I'm not familiar with that one, to be honest with you. Maybe you guys in the comments section can help us out. All right, next one comes to us from Brandon Martin, who writes, I've been watching since the converted broom closet AMC days. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. Did you notice Deadpool wearing stilettos in the trailer? I sure did. A lot are missing this great gag. You know what? If you go slowly through the trailer, and you know what? I was really surprised to find out that there were a bunch of people who didn't love this new Deadpool trailer. I thought the new trailer was great, but there's a bunch of people who don't like it, and that's fine. But if you go through it, I think you'll find a lot of little gags like that really, really work. Good eye, Brandon. Next one comes to us from Dirk Walker, who writes, if Jennifer Garner had an Iron Spider fetish, would you be down to cosplay? Just give me the suit. If Jennifer Garner's into Iron Spider cosplay, give me the suit. I'll figure out a way to make it work. Styler Manu writes, I've been falling asleep twice watching Jessica Jones. Yeah, I'm going to... Jessica Jones 2. Yeah, I was going to say, I assume you mean Jessica Jones Season 2. I didn't like it. Did not like Jessica Jones Season 2. I wanted to like it. It seemed like even what good things there were in the first season of Jessica Jones were devoid in this one. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of it myself. Matthew Correra writes, I think if Cap dies, then the ones that could step up with a bigger role would be the Guardians. Star-Lord can be a damn good leader, and he's super charismatic thoughts. I don't think so. I don't think somebody like War Machine is going to follow a Star-Lord. I think Star-Lord and the Guardians are great, but as far as like Star-Lord being a leader, I mean, maybe with that particular group of misfits that he's in, known as the Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe that works. But if you expect Scarlet Witch to follow him, or War Machine to follow him, or Ant-Man to follow him, I don't think that's going to happen. Especially when they've had leaders like Captain America. Once you've had a leader like that, you're not going to go to a leader like Star-Lord. Star-Lord could play a big role and be a part of it if they wanted to, but I don't see them making Guardians of the Galaxy a permanent fixture on Earth-based stuff. I think they're going to keep them interstellar. Styler Manor writes, do you attend luxury screenings with recliners? Oh, all the time. My favorite movie theater close to me is only a 10-minute walk up the street, which is the AMC Burbank 16, and they have the AMC Prime Theater in there with motorized plush leather recliner seats. Love them. So I go to there every chance I get. I love those theaters. Perry Ballantyne writes, hey, John, Love the show. Thank you so much, Perry. Have you seen The Rover? Damn, Robert Pattinson is good in that movie. Hey, look, not just The Rover. We've just been talking this past couple of weeks about some new films of his he's got coming out too. He's got one coming out with Mia Wasikowska as well, set in the Western. Robert Pattinson, forget the Twilight baggage. Robert Pattinson has turned into one hell of an actor. And it's not just The Rover. There's a bunch of these smaller indie films that he's done that he is blowing people away. He is a damn good actor. Damn good actor. Get over whatever baggage you have with, oh, he's the guy from Twilight. Just get over it, all right? He's turned into one freaking great actor. And yeah, he was particularly good in The Rover, but that's why I'm really curious. I'm trying to remember the name of this Western that he's going to be in. But we talked about it on the Movie News feed a couple of days ago. But that's why I'm looking forward to it. It's just because he's in it. I mean, he's just turning in great performance after great performance lately. Styler Manu writes, did you hear about the man who died in a freak cinema accident in Birmingham, England? I did. Poor chap was trapped under a recliner and had cardiac arrest. If I remember the story correctly, I don't know how you do this even. I mean, look, it's terrible what happened to this dude. Absolutely terrible. Thoughts and prayers out to his family and friends. Absolutely. But when I heard that he got himself stuck in it, I thought, how do you get yourself stuck in it? And by the way, that's not what killed him. What killed him was he was panicking. And as a result of the panic, he had a heart attack. And I think he died later in hospital. So it's like he didn't die in the theater, and it wasn't the chair that killed him. It's just that he got trapped, panicked, caused him a lot of stress, had cardiac arrest, if I remember the story correctly. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you get yourself trapped in that. You almost have to purposefully do it to get caught in that. At least if there were leather recliners there or anything like the leather recliners in theaters that I'm in. Terrible story, terrible news, but I just don't know how that happened. Jace Little writes, what's your favorite movie that isn't good? Well, anything that I like, I think is good. Even if it's like for guilty pleasures. But one of the big ones would be Cool as Ice with Vanilla Ice is absolutely one of the greatest bad movies ever made. Make sure you check that out. You've heard me talk about Cool as Ice all the time. Make sure you guys check that out. Let's see. Kristen Philippic writes, which MCU movies should we see before Infinity War? Well, I mean, it's impossible to say since I haven't seen Infinity War. One of the things these Marvel movies have done really well is that they've done them in such a way that you don't really need to see any of the previous ones they do a good job building on the previous ones, but also making them very self-contained stories so that if you're not well versed in the MCU, you can get caught up to date pretty quick. So having not seen Infinity War yet, I can't really say one way or the other that's the case. However, just off the top of my head, I would guess, hey, it seems like there's some carryover baggage from Civil War. So I would think if you had to watch one movie, you can only watch one MCU movie before watching Infinity War, it would seem to me the best one to watch would be Civil War. So, but then again, I might see Infinity War and change my answer, but in advance, my thought would probably be Civil War. Next one comes to us from Nathan Oswald, who writes, I tried posting a short video from The Tonight Show on Instagram, but it immediately got flagged for copyright infringement. I'm not getting any revenue from anybody, so shouldn't it be considered fair use? No, that is not how fair use works. Fair use is not click in because, well, I'm not making money from it, so therefore I'm allowed to post it. No. That is not how fair use works. You can look up online. There are some very definitive guidelines about how the fair use doctrine works. One of the things is that you have the way you can't just take a big piece of content, put it up online and say, there, it's fair use. No, you can't do that. That's just copyright infringement. What you can do is, like, for instance, sometimes I can use a clip of something here or there. If I'm using an image or a clip or something, don't take this as legal advice, by the way. I'm just giving you a basic outline. The best thing you can do is read more about it online. Look up the distinctions of fair use. But basically speaking, it has to be transformative in nature. It has to be for either clear parody. In a case like mine, is if I'm using images or clips for the purposes of criticism and critique, or educational. So if I put up an image of something, like the image might be copywritten from a movie, but if I'm bringing up an image to illustrate a point I'm making, then that is fair use. Again, read up about it yourself. Don't take what I'm saying as any kind of legal advice. But just the idea of, I can take a piece of copywritten content, put it up online, and as long as I don't get revenue for it, that's fair use. That is not what fair use is. That's not how fair use works. That's not how the fair use doctrine is intended. There are some specific guidelines about it. So I would say go ahead, read up on that, and find out a little bit more. But good on you for asking the question, Nathan. Good on you for asking. My Chow Zambrano writes, will we see 4K releases for the older MCU movies? I mean, I don't know. It depends on how long 4K isn't even the standard yet. And like I've been talking about on the show recently, I have not adopted 4K yet. And I'm probably not going to for at least another year. Because I'm hearing rumblings in the tech world that 8K may become the standard in just a couple of years. So I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars to buy new versions of movies, get a new television system, all that kind of stuff for something that's going to be obsolete in just a couple of years. Right now, I've got a 60-inch 1080 HD television hanging over the fireplace, and it's gorgeous, and I love it. And I don't watch it thinking, wow, if only this were clearer. Like, I don't feel that way right now. So, look, if another year goes by and it looks like 4K will be the standard for another 5, 6, 7 years, then I'll probably adopt it. But not before then, because I just really don't feel any need to do it at this point. So whether or not they'll release them, it depends. If 4K becomes a standard for a while, then I think it will happen. If it gets swapped out fairly quickly, maybe it won't. So I'm not really sure. But then again, I'm not paying attention to it because I haven't adopted to 4K yet myself. All right, good question. Next one comes to us from Matthew Ware, who writes, if Thanos is killing Thor in front of Loki, what if Thanos is killing Thor in front of Loki? The cap that goes against Thanos is Loki trying to avenge his brother he thinks is dead. Twist. Sure, but we already know for a fact from the trailers that that's not the case. Because that scene with Thor and Loki happens pretty much near the beginning. It's them on their ship together when Thanos, as we see at the post-credit scene from Thor Ragnarok, that Thanos' ship intercepts them. But then we see Thor later on in the movie. Floating through space with the Guardians, doing some other stuff as well. So we already know that that's not the order in which it happens. Interesting twist you're proposing for sure, Matthew. But I think the trailers kind of point out that that doesn't fit into the movie the way it is. Comic Kid writes, in Infinity War, who do you want to die? Tony would fit. I don't think Tony fits. Who would I want to die? I don't know. I don't think there's any character I want to see die. I like all the characters, so I gotta be honest with you, none. The honest answer for me is none. There's none characters that I want to see die. All right, next one comes to us from Matthew Carrera, who writes, thoughts on Siskel and Ebert show from back in the day, the movie critic show. Oh, it was called At the Movies. I loved it. I used to watch that all the time as a kid, even reruns. As a little kid, I would watch Siskel and Ebert. Roger Ebert is my all-time favorite film critic. Not because I agreed with him. I disagreed with him like at least half the time. Movies he liked, I didn't like at least half the time. But he was a great critic because he does what I try to do, which is express his observations and thoughts on a movie in such a way, not to convince you to agree with him, but in such a way that makes you understand your opinion a little bit better, whether your opinion is the same as his or is different from his. And I always felt that watching Ebert. Whether it was when it was him and Siskel together or whether it was him on his own, I always got that sense from Ebert that after I either watched, listened to, or read one of his reviews, I felt like I understood my point of view a little bit better, whether it was in agreement with his or different from his. And that's what I try to do as a pundit. I don't try to talk people into agreeing with me. I just try to honestly express my opinion in such a way that it helps my viewers better understand and better articulate their own opinion, whether it's the same opinion as mine or the complete opposite opinion as mine. If I can help somebody better articulate and better understand and better shape their own opinion, whether it agrees or disagrees with mine, then I've done my job. And maybe I'm good at it, maybe I'm bad at it, but that's something that I try to do, and that's why I loved Roger Ebert so much. Marcus Lillenberg writes, greetings from Gothenburg, Sweden. Well, greetings, Marcus. Just finished watching all 7 seasons of Sons of Anarchy, and what a great show it was. What did you think of the ending? Well, I don't want to give the ending away, per se, just in case there's other people like you who want to watch it. But I like the ending. I mean, in one sense, it broke my heart. But at the other sense, it was like, this was the way this show needed to end. But I love the ending. Sons of Anarchy is in my top 3 favorite television shows of all time. I love that show dearly, and I cannot wait for the spin-off show, Mayans MC, to come out. I'm really looking forward to that. All right, Kevin Campbell writes, thoughts on the 3rd act of Danny Boyle's Sunshine? In his review, Tarantino called it a betrayal of the audience. I don't know that I feel that strongly, but just in general, I didn't like Sunshine all that much. And the 3rd act certainly didn't help. So I don't want to go into too much for anybody who hasn't seen the film. I don't think I'd go so far as Tarantino did, calling it a betrayal of the audience. I don't think I would do that. But, I mean, just overall, I was not a fan of the film. And I know some people that just love that movie. 3rd act and everything. I know people who love that movie. But it was just never a film that really worked for me in general. Micah T writes, imagine Tony's PTSD if he makes it out of Infinity War and Avengers 4. No kidding, man. Especially... like, one of the things that I loved about the MCU and that I really appreciate about Iron Man 3 is that they address the fact that Tony Stark is a human being. And the things he's experiencing would take a toll on any human being. And I love that Kevin Feige and the MCU and Shane Black decided to use Iron Man 3 as a way to express and showcase the fact that all this stuff that Tony Stark is going through is having an impact on him. And it's having repercussions, and he's suffering from it. And I love that they had the guts to do that. And yeah, imagine what it's going to be like after the events of Infinity War and beyond it. It could be pretty catastrophic. Act Naturally Productions writes, what are your thoughts on the Marx Brothers? I feel nobody knows about them anymore. Duck Soup is one of my favorite movies. I love the Marx Brothers. And you can still go on YouTube and find a lot of little sketches and skits. One of my what I think is one of the funniest lines ever comes from the Marx Brothers. And the line, you've probably heard this line, but maybe you didn't know where it originated from. But I think it was one of the all-time funniest lines. And it's simply this. And it doesn't sound funny when I say it at all, but I would never want to be in a club that would take somebody like me as a member. I love that. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. One of the greatest lines of all time. You can still find a lot of their shorter version stuff online, but the Marx Brothers, I mean, them, Abbott and Costello, I mean, the comedy, were the Three Stooges. Comedy troops from the era were just gold, and I think more people need to look into them to appreciate them. Ali Hussein writes, love your show. Thank you so much, Ali. When is your Ready Player One review coming out? Well, I'm actually seeing Ready Player One tonight. I'm going to go watch Ready Player One tonight, so you can expect to either see my review tonight. Most likely I'll put it up tomorrow. But either tonight or tomorrow is when my Ready Player One review. I had a chance to see it last week. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. But tonight I am seeing it, and I'll let you know about it. Again, either later tonight or tomorrow is when I'll put my review up. Justin Ward writes, regarding amalgamating screenplays, thanks, great answer. I asked due to the potential Quentin Tarantino and Peg scripts for Star Trek. It's tough to be articulate in 30 words. Yeah, I was, so a question came up on the show the other day about, is a producer allowed to take different versions of a script and put them together to make one script for their film? And I said, yeah, that's pretty much what happens almost in every film. You get different iterations of a script quite often, and then they'll get another writer will kind of amalgamate those scripts. And ultimately, a producer can do whatever they want. As long as the producer is the one that holds the rights to those scripts and pays for those scripts, they can do whatever they want. So it was a great question, Justin. I really like the question that you sent in. Murray for Us writes, I saw a trailer for Scooby-Doo, for Scooby Natural. Dean saying son of a bitch in the cartoon makes me rolling. I cannot wait for that Scooby Natural episode. Supernatural, one of my favorite shows, probably been my favorite show for the last number of years. Not all time, but one of my favorite shows. And they're doing an episode, for those of you who don't know yet, where Sam and Dean go animated. and they get pulled into a universe, into the Scooby-Doo universe, and they have to solve a mystery with Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Gang. My whole life is about counting down to that. But seeing the Scooby-Doo animation, hearing you go, son of a bitch, in the Scooby-Doo world is hilarious. And seeing Dean macking on Daphne was also hilarious. I cannot wait to watch that, man. Laurie Scott writes, I agree they'll probably do an Iron Man 4 with Robert Downey Jr. as the lead. I think we'll see Iron Man 5 when they're ready to transition Tony to Hank Pym status and he trains his successor. Yeah, I mean, I think at some point you do that. I agree with you, Laurie. At some point you do that. But a question came up the other day where we were talking about the potential of an Iron Man 4. I do believe there's going to be an Iron Man 4. Look, I could be wrong. Like, Tony Stark could die in Avengers 3 or Avengers 4. Absolutely he could. I still think he survives it. And I think we're getting an Iron Man 4. If for no other reason than Iron Man 3 made $1.2 billion at the box office. And what I said on the show the other day is that I think even if Kevin Feige wants to kill off Tony Stark, I think his bosses, Alan Horn and Bob Iger, will pat him on the head and go, oh, that's adorable, Kevin. You're adorable. But no, you got to give us Iron Man 4. Again, I could be totally wrong about that. I'm not going to be shocked if they kill him in Avengers 3 or Avengers 4. I'm not going to be shocked. But I would give it a 52% chance that we will get Iron Man 4 with Robert Downey Jr. still as Tony Stark. That's just how I'm feeling on it right now. Kevin writes, what figures do you have in your pop collection? Oh, I have a lot. I have a hell of a lot of pops. You only see like just a fraction of them behind me here. I have like boxes and boxes of them packed away right now. Hopefully I'll be able to unbox a lot more of them, but I do have I think I have in the 150 range, something like that. Maybe I know people with tons more, but I think I got somewhere in the 150 range, I think, is how many I have right now. Lincoln Robinson writes, with how important it is for movies to have legs, do you think studios will start pushing apps like Stardust to get the word out? Oh yeah, studios are definitely working with, you see studios doing campaigns with Snapchat, with Facebook, with Twitter, and now with Stardust. Stardust, it's a good way to plug the whole thing here. Stardust right now, for the next few weeks, is actually a sponsor. They've partnered with me. They're a sponsor of the John Campea Show right now. It's a terrific app. I love it. But they are already working with Stardust. As a matter of fact, the screening I was going to go to last week was a Stardust screening of Ready Player One. The studio had partnered up with Stardust to do a promotion for it, and I just couldn't make it to it, unfortunately. But they are definitely, you're going to see studios, and they already are. Studios are leveraging social media platforms, particularly movie ones like Stardust, to promote their film. So yes, I think we're going to see that happen more and more and more as we move forward. Anthony R. writes, so you think it's okay to put Spidey in danger because he has superpowers, but a kid Robin is wrong even if he was trained extensively by Batman? Oh my God, Anthony, my buddy, my movie friend, my pal. Absolutely. Are you kidding me? Robin, a 12-year-old kid with a stick. I don't care who trained him. At the end of the day, Robin is a 12-year-old kid with a stick. Spider-Man is he's got the power of the gods, superhuman speed, agility, strength, senses, on top of other powers on top of that he has. I mean, for heaven's sakes, in Spider-Man Homecoming, we see him with a Staten Island ferry splitting apart and with his bare hands holding it together. Do you know how heavy that ferry is? I looked it up once. It's 3,000 tons. About 6 million pounds. That's what Spider-Man is holding together. And now, they've powered him down recently in the comic books, but even powered down in the comic books list him as Spider-Man's being able to lift 25 tons. 25 tons. That's 50,000 pounds. Not 50 pounds, not 500 pounds, not 5,000 pounds, 50,000 pounds. That's a couple of buses that he can just pick up and lift over his head. Do you know what that means? It means he can do this to a human being and turn all their bones into dust. Now, we're not even talking about Spider-Man's speed and agility and his other senses and other powers. That's just like that. You want to compare that to a 12-year-old kid with a stick. 12-year-old kid with this stick to this superpowered god who can lift buses over his head, and at one point in the movies held something that was 6 million pounds together, who has the speed and agility to dodge bullets. You want to compare a 12-year... Anthony, my best friend in the movie world, you want to compare that to a 12-year-old with a stick? Really? Really? That's what we're comparing? So yes, if you're going to ask me the question, buddy, about is it okay to put Spidey in danger because he has superpowers and not Robin? Yes, absolutely. That is right there. That is exactly what I'm saying. I am 100% saying that. Absolutely, I am saying that. No questions asked. So yes. Anyway, thanks for having some fun with me on that, Anthony. All right, next one. Old Flicks Joe writes, hey John, Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home is one of my favorite time travel. It's great. It might absolutely be my favorite time travel movie. I'd have to think about that. It's one of my favorite all-time time travel movies. I think Avengers 4 will be top 5 time travel movies of all time. Your thoughts? Well, number one, we do not yet know for sure. There's nothing that's been 100% confirmed that there is any time travel in Avengers 4. There's some things out there to suggest it might, but let's just be clear, there's nothing that confirms that. But even if it is time travel, it's impossible for us to say it's going to be a top 5. I mean, that is just wild speculation. And which is fine. We can do that as film fans. We can do wild speculation. But, dude, I don't even know if Infinity War is any good. I haven't seen Infinity War. I don't know that it's good. I'm anticipating it's going to be damn good, but I don't know if it's any good. It might be trash. So, it's really difficult for me to speculate a movie that is 3 MCU movies away, whether even if it's a time travel movie, if it'll be a top 5 all-time time travel movie. It's so impossible for me to even guess at this point because I have no basis to form any sort of a guess. So I'm going to take a pass on the question, but let's keep our eyes on that Old Flicks show for sure. Good old Uncle Sidious writes, what are your expectations for Unbreakable 3? Love the show. Well, Unbreakable 3, if you're taking that as to mean Split was Unbreakable 2, I got some pretty big expectations. Hey, look, the Sham Hammer's been on a bit of a roll. I mean, Split was real good. His film before that, The Visit, with Catherine Hahn, although she's a small role, but with Catherine Hahn, was really quite good. Sham Hammer's on a roll. M. Night is on a roll. So he seems to be getting his groove back. I think it's because he's got bosses he has to listen to now instead of just having free range to do whatever he wants. That's when he got himself in trouble. But working with Blumhouse has been magic for him. I'm starting to build some pretty good expectations for the movie, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not expecting the best movie ever or anything like that, but I am looking forward to this movie quite a bit because, like I said, Sham Hammer's getting his groove back. Laurie Scott writes, also, I think Tony believes that Peter is his Padawan, but Peter will break away and be his own Spider. Iron Man Jr. will be someone we don't know yet. I mean, yeah, although we don't see, Tony really hasn't spent much time with Peter Parker, really. A couple of quick meetings with each other has pretty much been it. So, who knows? Maybe Tony does see him in that light. Again, I hate the Iron Man Jr. angle that they're taking with it. But, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think Tony does kind of see himself that way. To me, it still doesn't excuse them not thinking Spider-Man is cool enough and they have to make him Iron Man Jr. But hopefully it goes the direction you're suggesting, for sure. Paul Offerman writes, Deadpool 2 cameo, Keira Knightley. She's got range. Well, no, Keira Knightley is... I don't see why she would be a big secret cameo, though. Keira Knightley is a world-class actress. Yes, for sure. But what would be so special about putting her as a cameo? Unless she played some big superhero character before, that would make an interesting cameo, but I don't see how that would be an interesting cameo, personally. I would love it to hear she was one of the stars of the film, but as the cameo, I don't see it. Gabriel Besser writes, hey John, I think City of God is one of the best foreign films ever. It's certainly great, I love it. What do you think? It got nominated for 4 major categories, however, it didn't get nominated for best foreign film. It doesn't make sense. I can't remember the specifics about it. I'd have to look into that. I've got a little spidey sense tingling in my head. I could be completely wrong about this. Don't quote me on this because I could be absolutely wrong on this. I think there was something about a technicality in the rules for qualifications as to why it didn't get nominated for Best Foreign Film. I might be thinking of another film entirely, but I think there was something like that. By all means, look into it, guys. If you guys know what it is I'm thinking about, either affirming what I'm saying or disproving what I'm saying, please jump into the comment section and let Gabriel know, because it's a really, really good question. All right. ZCM Zombie Custom Maps writes, favorite SNL skit featuring Bill Hader. Oh, I don't know, man. I that's way too general of a question. That's something I would have to sit down and think through a bunch. Of course, his character on the news has always been funny, but I'd have to think about it. That is, I'm trying to ditch the question or anything. It's just that's something I would need to think about. I can't think of it off the top of my head. James Peter writes, you ever watch Shin Godzilla? I have and enjoyed it greatly. ZCM Zombie writes, did you think the score from Pacific Rim 2 was meh? To be honest with you, I don't even remember it. I just saw it a few days ago and I don't even remember it. I remember quite liking the music and everything in the first Pacific Rim quite a lot, but I don't even remember it in this movie, to be honest with you. Laurie Scott writes, musicals. Do you think Wicked has waited too long on its movie version? I'm afraid it won't have the kind of buzz it would have had even 2 years ago. Well, yeah, and we talked a little bit the other day about how there is an unfortunate delay between something being big in the pop culture and how fast you can get a movie turned around. Because if you're going to do a good job with it, it will take years to develop a film, get it all written out properly, do the pre-production on it, cast it, shoot the film, do the post-production, market the film, blah, 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 blah. It can take years to do it. And that is an unfortunate thing. It will get over the fact that it's going to miss out on some of the pop culture buzz, and it will miss out on some of the pop culture buzz for sure because of the delay. But if it's a great movie, it will overcome that. So that's really what it's going to come down to, is the quality of the film. It is unfortunate that it's not going to be able to take advantage of the hot buzz. Like, they wanted to do a Hamilton movie. The time to put it out is within the next 3 or 4 months, but they'll never get one out in the next 3 or 4 months. The earliest we'll get a Hamilton movie is years from now, when a lot of the buzz of it being one of the hottest things in pop culture right now, that's going to be past. But if it's good and if it's really great and it appeals to the audience, it gets good word of mouth, it can overcome that. Joe Payne writes, might be a stupid question, but what is a film festival? Not a stupid question. I guess everybody can have their own definition of what a film festival is, but a film festival is basically a planned event, like a convention, where it's just like over the next number of days or couple of weeks, we book a couple of movie theaters and we just showcase a whole bunch of films that new filmmakers submit. A lot of times it's indie films. And you can buy a pass to a film festival and go and watch a whole ton of movies, and that's basically what a film festival is. Dave Atkins writes, hi from London. Hello, Dave. Jim Jarmusch, I've never known how to pronounce his last name, Fan John. Love Ghost Dog with Forrest Whitaker and Only Lovers Left Alive, the former being underrated. Well, it is a little bit underrated. He also did one with Bill Murray. There's one he did with Bill Murray that I liked. What the hell was that? It was like from 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006. It's in that age range somewhere. What's the one he did with Bill Murray? Broken Flowers. Broken Flowers is the one he did with Bill Murray. You know what? I'm not even sure it's called Broken Flowers. Give me a second. Now, I wasn't... let's see here. Yes, 2005 Broken Flowers, which is also a nice one. Look, I'm not going to say I'm a big fan of his, because it's not like any of those films are in my top 10, but definitely they're really good. The one he directed, Forrest Whitaker, great, by the way. So yeah, I like his films. I do. I don't know that I go out of my way to call myself a big Jim fan, per se, but I do like a number of his films. But I particularly like that Bill Murray one. I did. Let's see. Anthony R. writes, good wins because evil is dumb. Good example is Star Wars. Snoke and Palpatine kept talking shit and got their asses handed to them by their apprentices. Damn right they did. And of course, I love Anthony making a reference to one of the all-time great lines, and it comes from it comes from the movie Spaceballs, where Dark Helmet says, evil will always triumph because good is dumb. Anthony kind of turns that on its ear. I appreciate that. Good line, Anthony. All right, next one comes to us from James Peter, who writes, but DC can't reboot even Superman successfully. I know you like Man of Steel, but many didn't. And Reeve is Superman to so many people. Not as many today as there used to be. I mean, the older and older that movie gets, and look, I still stand, I think Man of Steel is better than Christopher Reeve's Superman. Particularly for today's age, I think it is. And I think they did do a good job doing Superman, but you're right, it didn't work out the way I wanted to as far as how the audience or critics responded to it. I'm finding more and more people are starting to appreciate Man of Steel, but hey, too little too late. But they did a good job. If they can do it again, I think it would be fine. So yes, they can absolutely reboot. Look, they rebooted Spider-Man a number of times. They rebooted Hulk a number of times. They rebooted Batman a number of times. It can work. It doesn't automatically mean it'll work. For sure, there's a possibility it could fail, but it's its best chance. It has a much better chance of succeeding with the reboot than it does by just blindly keep going the way they're going, because that's not working for them. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. All right, next one comes to us from Warren Lucas, who writes, "Hey John, ever see the day where we can bring headphones to movies as an option? Would cut down on the theater distractions." It's possible, because it's not tremendously difficult to put a headphone jack, if you want, into the chairs of the movie theaters. I mean, I guess it would kind of be expensive, but you could do it. Here's the problem, though. My fear is that, because headphones don't cut out all distractions, and my fear is that if people start wearing headphones, it'll make other people think it's okay to act rudely in theaters and to talk during theaters. And I could see a day going, "Hey man, can you please be quiet? We're watching the movie." And then going, "Well, then put on headphones." You know, that's my fear. My fear is that if you introduce something like headphones, it'll make everybody else less likely to just be polite. You know, it's like, oh, I can talk loud because if that bothers somebody, they can just put on headphones. Now it's your responsibility to put on headphones, and it shouldn't be that way. And headphones will never be like, I want the big Dolby surround sound. I want all that experience. So again, it's an interesting idea, but my fear is that it'll just encourage other people to act inconsiderately in theaters because whatever, they're wearing headphones. And that's what my worry would be. Angel Chang writes, "Mind blown. Black Panther beat Avengers domestic box office. If 1 year ago somebody told me, I would have said, you need to get their head checked, you ignorant slut. Jane," classic Dan Aykroyd line, "Jane, you ignorant slut." Yeah, man, look, seriously, like I said earlier, I would have given it, like, if you had said to me a year ago, Black Panther beats Avengers domestic box office, and I had to set an over-under, maybe I set the over-under at 5%. Maybe I set it at 4%. Maybe. I mean, it is just crazy. The run Black Panther has had is just unbelievable. Note Lore writes, when are you going on the Joe Rogan podcast? The moment Joe invites me. I mean, look, Joe Rogan, by the way, does not even know I exist. Let's be very clear about that. When I say the moment Joe invites me, that makes it sound like I know Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan does not even know that John Campea exists. Okay, let's be very clear about that. I would go on the Joe Rogan podcast like that. I am a big fan of Joe Rogan, not just because he's an MMA guy or a comedian or whatever. He's a great communicator. I think Rogan is underrated purely as a communicator. I think he's a terrific, so I'm a fan of his. And I think his MMA insight is amazing. He is like an amazing commentator for mixed martial arts. And I love hearing him talk about just about anything. Movies, MMA, you name it. I love listening to the guy. If Joe Rogan ever, number one, found out I exist, and number two, ever invited me on a show, if you want to talk about movies or whatever, I would do it in a heartbeat. I love that dude. But again, make no mistake, Joe Rogan doesn't even know I exist. Let's go on to the next thing here. Dylan Trost writes, what do you think of the film Signs? Underrated? No, I think it gets a good amount of pop. Like, Signs is really good. Aside from like the last 10 minutes. The last 10 minutes really cuts the legs out from under the film. But up until the last 10 minutes, it's a really good movie. I really like Signs a lot. More than most people. But I think most people acknowledge that the first 8/10 of the movie are really good. It's just that last 10 minutes or so really kind of undercuts it. Like, really, an alien race that's allergic to water is coming to a world that's 80% covered by water? I mean, it does seem a little odd to me, but so I don't think it's underrated. I think it gets the credit it deserves, but it also gets the criticism it deserves. but I do enjoy the film. Overall, as a film, I like it quite a bit. Matthew Koss writes, big Devils fan, had a good win last night. The only Devils I'm aware of, because I'm Canadian, is the New Jersey Devils. I don't know if you're talking about some basketball team, like some US NCAA hoops basketball team. If you're talking about the New Jersey Devils, I mean, look, they got to have one of the greatest goaltenders of all time for a long time in Martin Brodeur. Great goalie. They had great history, great coaches, great GMs. What's there not to be a fan about the New Jersey Devils, if we're talking about the New Jersey Devils? Flick Talk writes, I still hate Ahsoka. She dilutes canon. Yeah, I did not like the way they used Ahsoka Tano in the end of the Rebels series. How they used her in the previous season, oddly enough, I appreciate, and I liked her character in the previous season, but what they did at the end there, look, I get it. Dave Filoni has a massive geek boner for the Ahsoka character. I get it. But I'm over it. And I think he needs to get over it too. But anyway, just my thoughts on that. Lendro Fonseca writes, big fan from Brazil. Thanks for the great content. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that. You are appreciated. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Lori Scott, who writes, last Infinity War trailer should be Michael Pena with an MCU recap. I was saying the other day that you could do, before Avengers 4, you could put out a 90-minute movie that's just Michael Pena's Luis character, summing up everything that's happened in the MCU in 90 minutes in his storytelling methodology, and I would go and watch the hell out of that movie. I love that character so much. Thrasher305 writes, love Cannibal Holocaust, even with the controversy of animal abuse / snuff film allegations, beautiful Italian score, and great found footage film. It's hard to get by the other stuff, though, Thrasher. It's really, really hard to get by the other stuff that you're mentioning. Stephen Curzone writes, Amazon's Lord of the Rings $500 million budget. Thoughts? Well, actually, you know what? I actually addressed that earlier today on the John Campea show. On Monday, the Monday John Campea show, which was earlier this morning, we talked quite a bit about that $500 million budget. I get it. I know what they're going for. They want to make this their House of Cards. They want to make this their Game of Thrones. That's not just winning awards like their other show, what was it? Transparency, that won a bunch of awards, but it wasn't a huge audience, hoarder. They want a House of Cards, like what House of Cards did for Netflix. They want Game of Thrones, like what Game of Thrones did for HBO. That's what they're looking for, and it's a good strategy. It may not work, but I think it's a good risk to take. Mac Muse Tack Reviews writes, thoughts on Prison Break. Did you give it a shot? Did give it a shot. Never watched it all the way through. Was never hooked on the show, but I love seeing the actors from it. Still portraying. I love seeing the two guys together on Legends of Tomorrow. That's always been a kick. Anselmo Garza writes, why no Love, Simon review? Well, I don't have time to review every single movie. And Love, Simon was one I did not watch in advance, so my review would have been late anyway. And I knew it's not a movie that's going to have a lot of people watching it. Therefore, any review I do isn't going to get a lot of views. Therefore, I decided to take a pass on doing it. If I'd seen it a week before it opened and I could have gotten a review for it online earlier, I probably would have done a review. But mixing the fact that I know it wasn't going to be a big box office film with the fact that I didn't have a chance to go and see it early kind of made it to the point where, like some other films, it's not worth me doing a review for. So that's why I didn't do one for it. I like the movie, but I just couldn't be bothered to do a review. Derek Large writes, I've noticed in recent videos, Robert Downey Jr. is growing his hair long again. Perhaps he is finally prepping for Sherlock 3, or am I looking too much into it? You're looking too much into it. He might just be growing his hair out because he just wants to grow his hair out. I mean, we just don't know. Last I heard, they would like to do a part 3, but it's become really difficult on a couple of levels. One, they've never gotten the script that they really want. Number 2 is working out everybody's schedules to make it happen. That's been difficult for them. So the last I heard about Sherlock 3 is that they all want to do one. They just, nothing's been able to trigger it at this point. So yeah, I don't think it's for Sherlock 3. Wouldn't it be great if it was, though? Last of the Time Lords writes, Elektra from Netflix Daredevil get her own show? No, I don't think it's going to happen. They talked about it a couple of years ago, but nothing ever came out of it. So no, I don't think we're going to see an Elektra standalone show. Amin Mashe Ekai writes, Which film has higher chance of breaking into the top 5 biggest May opening weekend? Solo or Deadpool 2? The 5th biggest right now is Spder-Man 3 with 151 million. I think Deadpool 2 is going to open bigger. And it's funny, I've got 2 friends, both in the movie industry, both amazingly knowledgeable, and both have made predictions on things that are freaky accurate. And these 2 buddies of mine are on completely opposite ends. I got one buddy who is telling me Solo isn't going to make $50 million opening weekend. The other buddy, who is also usually right, they're both usually right, is saying it's going to make $150 million opening weekend. One says it's not going to hit 50. The other thinks it's going to be 150 plus. I don't know. I really don't know. Right now, I have no idea what to expect from it. Right now, though, my prediction is that Deadpool 2 has the bigger opening weekend. But, I mean, hey, let's see as we get closer. You never know. Last of the Time Lords writes, worst MCU sequel, Thor the Dark World or Iron Man 2? Well, I think Thor the Dark World was definitely a big step down from the first Thor, which I think is a top, the first Thor is a top 10 all-time favorite comic book movie for me. But Thor the Dark World was a big step down. I still think Thor the Dark World had more going for it than Iron Man 2 did. That's just my opinion. Other people may disagree, which is totally fine. But I'm going to say the worst sequel was Iron Man 2. CDU Vlaster writes, thoughts on a Half-Life movie? One of the best first-person video games of all time. Seems like a perfect blend of wrong place at the wrong time action flick with cool sci-fi and government conspiracy spin. Yeah, but we've seen 1,000 other games like that come out since. And it's been so long since Half-Life was a popular thing. On top of that, with video game movies like Tomb Raider coming out and really tanking, I just don't see it happening. I just don't see any studio taking a even modestly big budget risk on a video game movie when even really well-known IP like Tomb Raider, and the movie isn't even, the movie's pretty good. Tomb Raider's pretty good. And it's still tanking. So I just don't see any. If I was a producer or a studio head right now, I would not greenlight it. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't greenlight it. It's too little, too late. And right now, it just seems like the market isn't upholding those projects right now. Trojan of Narnia writes, Kylo should beat Rey in episode 9. He hasn't won yet. Hasn't won yet? Tell that to Snoke. Tell that to Snoke that he hasn't won yet. Look, he hasn't had a fair fight yet. Number one, his fight against Rey and Finn in The Force Awakens, he was majorly at a disadvantage. Number one, he had just gotten shot with Chewie's bowcaster, which was blowing other people to bits. So he was dying, number one, already when he started that fight. Plus, he had a trained stormtrooper and a girl training and fighting for her life since birth, who was also incredibly powerful in the Force. So he was already dying. He was shot, wounded, and bleeding, fighting these two people at once. That was not a fair fight. And then his second fight with Rey was a draw. I mean, it was quite literally a draw. So that he hasn't won yet, tell the old man at the beginning of The Force Awakens. Tell that to Snoke, that he hasn't won yet. Tell that to all the people that he's killed. But yeah, I don't see that happening. Yang Kinirsch writes, John, Cinemark has on Tuesdays where all tickets are $5. Does the theater set the pricing or do studios come up with the price of a ticket? No. The theater set their pricing, but it's also done... Look, it's a complicated thing. This is a gross oversimplification of it. The theater set their own ticket prices. They coordinate and work out with the studios in general about what those prices are going to be, but the theaters set their prices, and then the studios get a certain percentage of those tickets. So that's really how it works. Koa1708 writes, do you think Sony is hearing all these criticisms about Venom or lack thereof? Is it too late to change things if these rumors are true? Well, number one, I've always said that I do not believe those rumors are true. Number two, Tom Hardy himself just took to social media to say those rumors weren't true. So it's not even worth really talking about. If it had been true, right now it would be too late to do anything about it. Like now that we're almost in April, the movie's coming out in October. It's really too late to mount any kind of massive reshoot effort at this point without pushing back the release date and investing $100 million, $150 million more dollars into it. So it would have been a little bit too late anyway. But as I said, Tom Hardy's already dispelled those rumors, so it's not something we have to worry about. Jordan Benjamin writes, did you like Murder on the Orient Express? I liked it, but I was still disappointed by it because Kenneth Branagh, to me, is a master filmmaker. What he was able to do, forget even his older stuff, the type of movie he was able to make with the first Thor, the type of movie he made with a live-action Cinderella, what he was able to do is incredible. I liked Murder on the Orient Express, but I gotta tell you, I was hoping for more. So even though I liked it, I was disappointed. So, liked it, not a big fan of it, but liked it. Maybe One Name writes, do you think Doctor Strange or Black Panther will actually join the Avengers, or will they remain allies to the Avengers? Good question. I think they will remain allies to the Avengers. I don't see either of them becoming out. Black Panther has the responsibility of being King of Wakanda. Doctor Strange has responsibilities of being the Sorcerer Supreme. So maybe like affiliate members of the Avengers, like I think more of the just really good friends associated with the Avengers who can be called on when they're needed. But who knows what Kevin's thoughts are on that. Jordan Benjamin writes, did you see the new Infinity War TV spot, Thor meeting Guardians of the Galaxy? Yes, that was funny. Having Drax going, this is a man, a handsome, muscular man. And then Gamora, he has muscles like they're made out of like whatever fiber, and like it's very funny. Star-Lord, stop massaging his muscles. It was a funny scene. I did see it and I did enjoy it a great deal. Jonathan Zaniga writes, if Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse does well, would Marvel invest into more animated superhero movies in the future? Well, sure. The question is, will Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse do well? I am guessing it's not. I don't think Spider-Man Into the Spideyverse is going to do all that well. I think it'll do okay. But hey, look, if the movie made $500, $600 million worldwide on like, say, a $100 million budget, and I don't know what the budget is, it might be more than that. But if it were to make that kind of money on that kind of a budget, yes, I could see Marvel definitely, and Sony definitely doing more like that. Absolutely doing more like that. And really, that's the thing. It's not Marvel. It's Sony. Into the Spider-Verse is a Sony movie. It's not a Marvel movie. And it's not even being done in cooperation with Marvel. It is a Sony movie. If it does well, would Sony do more? Absolutely. If it does really well, could Marvel look at doing that? I don't know. They've already seemed to got something that works for them. So we'll have to really wait and see. But just to be clear, Spider-Man Into the Spideyverse is not a Marvel film. It is a Sony film. Eli the Creative writes, do you think as time goes on, the audience expect comic book movies to be more and more accurate? Before I didn't care, but now I want a 5'3" Wolverine. No. You know why? Because 95% of the audience doesn't read comic books. 95% of the people going to these movies have never picked up a comic book in their life. Like you ask most people coming out of the Logan screening, hey, how tall is Logan supposed to be? 6 foot tall or 5'3"? 95% of them would say 6 feet tall. They would have no idea that Logan. People who watched Civil War had no idea that in the comic books, the story was really different. 90% of the people who saw X-Men Days of Future Past would have no idea that it's massively different from the comic book. So no, the general audience doesn't care because the general audience, unfortunately, doesn't read comic books. That's just the way it is. Alan Gonzalez writes, I think what they are doing with Iron Spider is getting us, why does everybody keep asking me about Iron Spider? Is getting us amazed with it for the time he does not use it anymore and does better things when he gets more amazed maybe. I don't know, whatever. I mean, sure, whatever flimsy excuse they have for using the Iron Spider suit is their own, whatever their motivations are, I really don't care. I just don't like that they're doing it. Mark Dirksen writes, I am a runner as well as a movie fan. My favorite running movie is St. Ralph because he has races I run. Are there other running movies you could recommend? Well, I mean, some people would say Forrest Gump, but to me, one of the best movies ever about running is Chariots of Fire, which, if I'm not mistaken, won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Chariots of Fire is amazing. And if you are a runner, if I remember, it's been forever since I've seen it, but there's this one line when the main character is talking about it, when like the main character is like this Christian dude, right? And there's some conflicts between his faith and representing the country and all that kind of stuff. But at any rate, there's this great line. If you're a runner, you'll love it, where he says, when I run, I feel God's pleasure. It's an amazing line. And in context, it's even better. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. But if you have not checked out Chariots of Fire, check out Chariots of Fire. It's probably the best movie ever about running. Check it out. Weil Peoples writes, how awesome would it be if The Rock's movie Skyscraper was called Nakatomi Plaza? That would be an interesting tie-in. I think kind of pointless, but it would be really funny. That would be a funny tie-in for sure. Miles Pardo writes, will you be watching or reviewing AMC's The Terror? I don't know. I at this point, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I've heard about it, but I really don't know anything about it. So at this point, all I can say is I don't know. Sorry guys, my voice is starting to go. I've been talking straight for an hour now. Okay. UC151 writes, why is it so difficult for people to acknowledge that a new generation can see Marvel characters to be as iconic as Batman and Superman? Black Panther says a lot. Because of this, becoming iconic is not a fad. Becoming iconic is something that takes place over the test of decades. Could Black Panther become iconic like Batman and like Superman, where Black Panther achieves a certain, or any of the modern comic book movie characters, Daredevil or Ant-Man or Black Panther, where 40 years from now, they maintain as one of the top key comic book characters consistently for 40 years, where it transcends not just a popular trend right now, but becomes a favorite of generation and generations and generations. If that happens, it can become iconic. Batman ain't iconic because The Dark Knight. Batman was iconic long before Christopher Nolan ever made The Dark Knight. Becoming iconic is not about being a popular trend right now. Batman is iconic because he is popular and has been popular for my grandfather's generation, my father's generation, for my generation, and probably whenever I have a kid, my kid's generation. Black Panther, Ant-Man, Daredevil, whatever, they have not achieved that. And they can't achieve it in 1 year. And they can't achieve it in 5 years. Iconic is tested over years and years and years. And if you want to start comparing to Batman and Superman, decades and decades and decades. Can Black Panther become that? Can Daredevil become that? Can Doctor Strange become that? Sure, it's possible, but it's not something you can rate or judge or even guess right now when it's just a popular thing right now. Ask again in 20 years. But don't start comparing Daredevil or Black Panther or Ant-Man or Aquaman if you want to go into the DC range. Don't start trying to compare them to Batman and Superman, who have held those positions for generations and generations. Decade after decade after decade. That's why it does frustrate some people like myself when hear like, hey, Daredevil's a great TV series. It's awesome. I love it. And then like I remember talking, the reason I keep bringing up Daredevil is because I had this conversation once about Daredevil about 6 months ago. It's like, he'll go down, is remembered right up there with Batman. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Okay, Daredevil has always been a very good comic book character, but never that popular. Yes, he's really popular right now because of the TV series. Talk to me in 30 years if he's still this popular in 30 years. Otherwise, don't try comparing him to Batman, my friend. Do not try comparing him to Batman. So it's could Daredevil, could Black Panther, could these characters achieve that status? Yes, it's possible. But right now is not the time to have that conversation. Ask me again in 20 years. Ask me again when Daredevil, Ant-Man, Black Panther, Aquaman, whatever, have been able to achieve that status and hold that status for decades. Then let's have that conversation. Right now, Daredevil is just a popular trend. Right now, Black Panther is just a popular trend. If Aquaman succeeds, God willing, if Aquaman succeeds, Aquaman is just a popular trend. Let's see if 25 years from now, they still are maintaining that highly respected, highly popular, highly loved level. then let's have that conversation about trying to compare them to Superman and Batman. Then let's have that conversation. Until then, it's just a popular trend. No matter how good and amazing it is, which Daredevil is, which Black Panther is, but until they've held that spot for decades, it's a different conversation. It's a totally different conversation. Charlie Gray writes, ex-actor in ex-director's movie, sure, why not? Expect that one or something that can be on merchandising. Yes, I have a lot of people with ideas about what I should put on the John Campion merchandising. An ex-actor, an ex-director movie? Sure, why not? That is one I should consider. Good one. The Halo Brony writes, Aaron Eckhart is always in my favorite movies. I don't agree. I always like Aaron Eckhart in movies, but sometimes he's in terrible movies. Like, is his Frankenstein movie one of your favorite movies? Really? I'm not so sure that you would say that it is one of your favorite movies. He's been in some terrible movies, but Aaron Eckhart is always great. So that's what else. I believe Aaron Eckhart is super underrated. He should be a major A-list leading man star. I think his talent level is incredible. He just brings it. But he's been in some awful, awful movies. So anyway, that's just my opinion. You have a different opinion. That's totally cool, man. That's why all films are subjective. All right. Ali Hussein writes, when Scooby dies, then Scooby dies, not on my watch. I wouldn't, actually the phrase is I would. You misspelt that. I would take a bullet for that dog. Best line in the trailer. Again, talking about the Scooby-Doo Supernatural trailer. They're talking about, maybe we do this. And Sam and Dean goes, well, that means Scooby dies. Not on my watch. I would take a bullet for that dog. It is a great, I still think son of a bitch is the best line in the trailer, but that is also a great line in the trailer. Again, him also trying to score with Daphne was really good too. Dylan Trost writes, what was opening night of Phantom Menace like? Crazy, circus-like. It was nuts. Just nuts. And I drove 2,000 miles just so I could go watch opening night of Phantom Menace at my favorite movie theater, which was in Canada. I drove thousands of miles just so I could watch it in my favorite theater. And it was a circus-like atmosphere. It was just crazy. Stig 100-900 writes, will people see Nate Parker's new film after the allegations against him? Can he even have success anymore? Birth of a Nation bombed despite the acclaim. Yeah, so earlier today on the John Campia show in the movie news feed, we talked about how Nate Parker, the director of Birth of a Nation, which got a lot of awards buzz, and then these accusations about these rape accusations, things that were never proven, be clear, were brought up again, and it just tanked his movie and it tanked his career. And he hasn't directed anything since, understandably so. But anyway, he has signed on to direct a new movie called Black and Blue. It's based on a true story. And the question that's going to be for everybody, and it's not something that I would address or try to tackle in a movie news feed segment. That's just a quick, rapid thing of facts. That's going to be the big question. Will people go see it? Understanding who's directing it. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. Look, I haven't even deeply researched the Nate Parker case. I just know some of the headlines. I don't really know all the details of his case. I don't know how likely it is that he's innocent. I don't know how likely it is that he's guilty. I haven't looked into it. I'm not going to pretend that I have. So I don't know. But just the controversy itself, it is a risk. It's a risk having him direct this film. Maybe it's a risk that'll pay off. Maybe it won't. I get it's a good question. I think it's a question a lot of people are going to be asking, especially once this movie is shot. Do they send it straight to home video? Do they try to make a theatrical release out of it? I don't know. Maybe it'll be a Netflix film and the whole who directed it issue will be buried. I don't know. But this story is going to be one of the more interesting ones to keep our eyes on. All right. Ali Hussein writes, are you going to do a review on the Supernatural crossover? I hope it's going to be live. I am sure people are going to want to talk about it. I am definitely going to do a review of the episode. I don't know that I'll do it live because I probably won't watch it live. I'll probably watch it the next day on the CW app. Because if I watch it live, I'm watching it live on West Coast time when everybody in the East Coast saw it 3 hours ago. So I will definitely do a review. I will consider doing it live, but I'm not sure that I'll do it live. Cameron W. writes, I recently read Aaron Sorkin had a vision of a West Wing reboot starring Sterling K. Sterling K. Brown. Of course, he was just in Black Panther, and of course, he's on This Is Us. Are you a West Wing fan? Think we'll ever see daylight? I loved West Wing. I loved West Wing. But I loved West Wing for the characters. So I don't know what I would think about a rebooted West Wing. I don't know. I really don't know, because it wouldn't be the same. It would be a different set of characters. And to me, that's what made West Wing so special, was the characters. So to me, it would just be another White House president movie. And maybe it'll be a good one. Maybe it'll be a bad one. I don't know. But it wouldn't be West Wing, because it wouldn't be the characters that I knew and remembered and loved so much. Luna Comics writes, So is Killmonger just want to take over Wakanda, to take over the world, just to boost his ego? Because that just makes him a bad villain, in my opinion. No. There was more to Killmonger than that. Remember, there was underneath that, there was incredible pain. There was trauma that was caused to him that shouldn't have been experienced by anybody. Finding his own father murdered by who he understood to be his family, by this mystical place that he never got to see. And then he was abandoned there on his own in the US, despite the fact that he was royal blood. Then he grows up seeing his people of his own race being mistreated and oppressed and all that kind of stuff, while Wakanda has the means of doing something about it and doesn't do anything. It's all of those layered things that make him an interesting dude. Yeah, ultimately they warp him and twist him, turn him into a pretty evil, bitter, angry guy. But it's all those other layers that makes him as Killmonger such an interesting, thought-provoking, intriguing, and engaging villain. He's not just some mustache twirler, I want to destroy and take over the world, ha 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 ha. No, he's not just one of those. It's all those things that makes him a really compelling villain. At least to me, that's how he worked for me. David Kroll writes, due to everything they are... guys, please don't send me these messages where you abbreviate every single word. It's really tough. I'll give it one try to read it. David Kroll writes, due to everything they are trying put into Avenger 3 and 4, is it true, rumor, that the run time of Avengers 3 is 6.5 hours? I kid. Okay, you're kidding, obviously. I know, it is hard to imagine how they're going to be able to keep this movie to 2.5 hours. With so many characters. My big fear about Avengers 3 is that it might feel convoluted. And a little bit of a mess. That's my fear. I'm not saying that's what it is, because I haven't seen the film yet. But if I had any apprehension, any fears going in, those are my fears. We'll have to see how it turns out. Chris Martin writes, thanks. Thank you, John, for all you do. Never stop doing what you do. Well, thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for supporting the channel and for watching the channel and being part of the conversation. I appreciate that greatly. Next one. Rcast6 writes, why don't studios release the complete score for movies? Pirates of the Caribbean had several songs that were not in the official soundtrack. You know what? Somebody asked me that the other day, too. I don't know. I don't know. I am not a soundtrack expert. I don't know what considerations go into those decision-making processes. But a few other people have asked me the same type of question. I really don't know. It's a good question. You know what? I've got this friend, Dorina, and she is a movie soundtrack nerd, a movie score nerd. I'll ask her about that and see what she has to say about it. Let's see. History Soup writes, chances Constantine appears in the DCEU? I think slim to none. I don't think we're going to see him in the DCEU. Dylan Truss, although if Legends of Tomorrow gets renewed for season 4, which we don't know if it will or not, but if it does, they've already announced that Constantine will become a regular cast member on Legends of Tomorrow. Dylan Trost writes, when do you think we will get another Solo trailer? Well, it's got to be soon. The movie's coming out in May. So soon. That's the only thing I can say at this point, is probably soon. Chris Warden writes, in my opinion, too much is being made about Rampage's upcoming box office performance. Warner Brothers will be doing backflips if he even does half of what Jumanji did. Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, if Rampage makes like $400-something million, they will absolutely be doing backflips. Let me just take a look. I don't know if they have a reported budget on it at this point. So look, if the movie costs $200 million to make, which I can't imagine it did, then it needs to make more than $400 million. But if they spent like $110 million making it, then if this movie makes $400 million, they will be doing backflips. If the movie makes like $200 million, they're going to be pretty upset. But I mean, We're just going to have to wait and see how it does. And the final question today. Sorry, this is a long one. The Monday companion videos are kind of long. Webhead writes, "Hey John, I'm wondering how YouTubers can get into press screenings, specifically Avengers Infinity War. I have my own channel and I was just curious." Well, I get asked a lot about how can I get into a press screening. It's simple. You got to be invited. Anybody can have a YouTube channel. The question is, do you have enough viewers? Do you have enough subscribers that a publicist for a studio will go, we will benefit if we have that person? Because they only have so many seats at these screenings. So they're careful about who they invite to these screenings because they want to make sure that the people they invite will have enough reach, YouTube reach, social media reach, to justify putting them in one of those seats at the screenings. So if you're somebody that has like 500 YouTube subscribers, you're probably not going to get invited to these screenings. But who cares? I mean, it's not all that important. I don't even go to all the screenings I'm invited to. I mean, it's not that vital or important. I do it because I like it and I get a kick out of it, but it's not life or death. It certainly isn't. But, if once you start getting like 20,000 subscribers or more, then you might get on the publicist's radar. And you can start writing to the publicist. But I would say if you're under 10,000, first of all, I think you need about 20,000 just to get on the radar. But if you're under 10,000, it's not even probably worth reaching out to them. Look, I don't know. I'm just guessing here, but you got to be invited. There's no form you fill out where now I'm allowed to go to things or like, there's nothing like that. It's not like I get a press badge and that means I can go to every screening. No, I still have to be invited to every screening I go to. And for that to happen, you got to be on their list. And to be on their list, that means you have to be somebody that you have enough social media reach on YouTube or Twitter or whatever, that you can have a big influence over a large number of people who can come out to see the movie. So it's about needing to be large enough. So don't worry about getting on. This is one of the things I always tell people when I do like seminars or whatever on this stuff is don't even worry about it. Worry about your channel. Just worry about putting out good quality content and building your user base and building your viewer base. Once you get big enough, all that stuff about getting on press lists and stuff like that, that'll all take care of itself later. Don't worry about it. Just focus on your channel and making the best channel you can. And then let the rest of that stuff come about on its own later. All right. Oh my God, my voice is gone. That'll do it for me, guys, for this installment of the John Campea companion videos, catching up on all the questions I didn't have a chance to get caught up on during the John Campea show or open mic. That will do it for me. My name's John Campea. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. And until next time, bye-bye.